Hello, welcome back to Aetheral Space 13.35, the interview, part 1. We are back.
Oh, I wonder what this chapter's going to be about. Do you think anyone will get an interview?
No, I think I've actually trolled you.
Are you doing the JJK format they do now, which is just like all the characters getting interviewed about whatever's going on right now?
Fucking skippers, they're like, why can't I do the Black Flash? Well, the reason for that.
Oh man, if I had to go up against Mariloco, he might give me a little trouble.
But would you lose, Skipper?
Of course not. Alright, are we ready to begin?
Yeah. Nah, I'd change the shape of this world.
No. Can someone make that a meme, please? With you doing the Gojo face? 2 years ago. Fuck, what was his voice again?
It was kind of like this, I think.
I'm surprised, Rex laughed, kicking his feet up on the table as he wrestled his beer free from the drinking slot on his mask. I didn't think I'd be seeing you again after the true meet. Ruth frowned. You're the one who gave me your card, she replied, slapping it down on the table. Rex Restarosi, an independent military operator, PL9266CD8921. I love these new little intros you're doing, like you did for Nebula 1. It's very
That's what the card says.
Yeah, oh. Well, it's all... Fuck you.
Yeah, just put some random digits in there.
I assumed it was what the card said, but I also thought you were trying to do that format. But I guess not.
It's like My Hero Academia where they always say what fucking quirk is in the corner.
Yeah.
It's like, oh thanks, I didn't know that Deku had one for all.
True. They were at a bar on the moon of Prush, a tropical landscape stretching out beyond the window. The temperature outside was humid to an inhospitable extreme, and only the state-of-the-art air conditioning in the sealed city kept it inhabitable. In fact, it was fairly cool. Ice clinked around at the bottom of Rex's drink as he took another sip. I give plenty of people my card, Rex said. I usually don't ever see them again, and I've never had one ask me to start a business with them. Why not? Ruth sat down across from him. You're smart, you know the business, and I'm strong. Strong enough to make it work. Rex plucked his card off the table and flipped it over in his hands. That's pretty arrogant, no? Calling yourself strong like that? Ruth grinned. If I said I was weak, I'd be a liar. Besides, you already know I'm strong. The mask covered Rex's face fully, but she could hear the grin in his voice. How's that? If you didn't think I was strong, Ruth said. In an instant, she snatched the card out of his hands and turned it back towards him. Why'd you give me this? Which one looks better? Ray asked, holding up a shirt in each hand. Be honest! This was not how Ruth had expected to be spending her day. Late last night, the word had come in. The Musashi camp had proposed a delay to the fight between the Toy Musashi and Mariloco, and Mariloco had consented. As such, the fight was moved right to the back of the current schedule, opening up a rare day in which no fights would be occurring at all. The public hadn't been too happy about that, of course, but they didn't have a say in it. And so Ray Rudicia, this is like the worst Don contest to be a spectator for. Yeah. Imagine you paid like your whole salary to come out here for the fucking shonen fights. And like half the fights are just like, I surrender, oh I died off screen.
It's like everyone's pissed off at Dragon.
Yeah. People hate Dragon. He's pulling at an all-time low.
But he's winning.
Yeah, but I mean
he's on my grind set.
Mariloco had consented.
He's on my Shisa grind set.
And so Ray Rudicia had decided she'd spend this day on personal recreation. And so she'd brought Ruth along to accompany her. And so Ruth had spent the last 2 hours trailing after the reporter as she rampaged through nearly every store in the Grester Homeground Mall. By this point, a legion of storage automatics were following them as well, like floating dogs, their backs holding all the clothes and other goods that Ray had decided to toss her money at. Hell, Ruth was half tempted to sit on the back of one of them and get a free ride, too. If not for the fact that the weight of her mechanical legs would surely have crushed them. They were getting on her nerves, too. Usually, she could tune out the cold and clumsy feeling of the prosthetics to some degree, but this was one of her bad days. Today, it felt like she had freezing metal glued to burning legs that no longer existed. A shudder went down her spine. Ruth? Ray prompted again, blinking. She raised the shirts up. Thoughts? Ruth scratched her head. They both look fine, I guess. This isn't really my thing. You should have brought Alice if you wanted to talk about this stuff. If Ray had asked anyone apart from Ruth to accompany her, maybe Ruth could have someone else to talk to. Maybe Ruth wouldn't be on the verge of death from boredom. What was even the point of hiring so many bodyguards if you only actually took one out with you? Oh, it's fine, the reporter laughed. Everyone wears clothes. You have an opinion. Raising an eyebrow, Ruth tapped her legs with a finger. Ding, ding. Not really been in the market for pants these last few years. Ray rolled her eyes. But these are shirts. The conversation didn't progress much past that point. Does Ruth just wear, like, graphic tees?
Yeah. It's a couple of plain colours, really.
The next hour was basically a blur, a sequence of events melted together. Ray dragging her from store to store to store to store, more and more automatics joining the parade, and more unsuccessful attempts to drag Ruth into a conversation she had no interest in. It was only when the two of them had finally stopped to rest, sitting at a bench beneath the statue at the mall's heart, that Ruth finally came back to herself. So, Ruth, Ray chirped, do you think life has a meaning? Ruth glanced over, mid-chew through a cheeseburger. Ah!
Her big favourite. Her character
What a
trait.
call. Yeah. if this was Ruby, they'd make t-shirts about this. This would be the moment. This would be their thing.
I'm on the fucking Aetheral Space Reddit, like, did anyone else cheer when they saw the burger? This is the proof that they love don't know the fan base.
Where'd that come from? She asked, her voice muffled by beef. Like I...
Sorry.
What?
Sorry, I was coughing.
Oh, I thought that was Rocky, like, having a panic attack.
No, it was me. It's my illness.
Oh. Like I said, the reporter grinned, you've sparked my curiosity. I want to know what your take on life is. Well, Ruth scratched her cheek. Meaning of life, meaning of life. I guess I've never really thought of life that way. Take each day as it comes, you know? I'm still around, so it must work well enough. Ray nodded sagely. I think you've got the right idea there. Personally, I think there should be a purpose to life rather than a meaning. Ruth cocked her head. Aren't those the same thing? Not at all! A purpose is something you decide for yourself, but a meaning is something given to you by someone else. She turned her head to look at the statue behind her. Like these poor bastards. Ruth turned her head to follow her gaze. Looming above them was a statue of Archibald Grace, one of the old war heroes of the Supremacy. But that wasn't where Ray's gaze was pointing. No, she was looking down at the vanquished enemies the Grace progenitor was standing upon, the Inhumans. Nobody quite agreed how to classify them. Some considered them a fifth great subrace, some considered them as a particularly troublesome kind of skirnt, and some considered them as not even being human at all. Even if that was the case, they looked human. Even their demonic depictions in the statue were vaguely recognizable as human beings. In some sense, they'd been jacks of all trades. Some of the intelligence of cogitans, some of the hardiness of pugnance, and some of the deceptiveness of umbrance. Only it was all turned to the purposes of human slaughter. They were one of the genetic vengeances, like the fell beasts or the UAP's angel of applause, time bombs left by the gene tyrants to go off long after their demise. Roughly 300 years ago, the Inhumans had emerged onto the scene all at once, long dormant genes suddenly activated in those who'd previously appeared to be crownless. With their biological killing engines, they... Oh, that fox. What is a killing engine?
Oh.
Is it like King's King engine or whatever?
They had, like... It's a bit Tokyo Ghoul-esque. They had, like, individual powers.
Oh, so is this blood drive?
It was... Maybe not blood drives, but no. They were all, like, biological things. Not, like, powers, basically.
Were they each unique, or was it the same power?
Unique.
Ooh. It'd be like, I have tentacle spike! And it
Exactly,
jumps out
something
of their
like
stomach. Yeah.
Like a limb or something they could, like, bring out, usually.
Someone else is like, fairy wings! Use sleep powder on the enemy.
They're usually, like, killing methods in themselves, basically.
I mean, that's what the name Killing Engine would imply.
Yeah, so maybe not wings on their own, probably not.
What was the coolest Killing Engine?
We'd have to wait. We'd have to see.
What do you mean we'd have to see?
Because I can't think of I can't think of multiple.
They're dead already.
I can't just say the strongest one was blah blah blah. Because then I have to think of multiple and rank them.
I didn't say what the strongest one is. I said what's the coolest one. That's subjective.
Well, coolest one would probably. Well, they're not really like flashy. It would be like.
I have an idea. I've got an idea for you. Hear me out.
Okay.
Someone has like a little face hugger they can shoot out of their mouth. It puts a parasite in your brain, effectively making you brain dead, and then controlling you as a zombie they can fight with.
Yeah, that would be something that would be like that sort of thing. Yeah.
Perfect. Done. I did your job for you. But eventually the tide had turned, and the subspecies had been all but wiped out. Ruth looked over to Ray. What do you mean? Ray looked back. Even back then, the Gene Tyrants must have known that these Animans couldn't have won. They were a spit in the face of the future, engineered out of spite. But there was definite meaning to their lives, right? It was given to them by their creators. As close to guaranteed divine providence as I think you can get in this world. Her eyes narrowed. The meaning of their lives was to inconvenience the galaxy and then be slaughtered. Don't you think it would have been less cruel for their lives to be meaningless? Oh, is she bitter because she has a meaning? Someone gave her a job? Oh, no. Ruth looked back at the statue, and the demonic creature being crushed underfoot suddenly looked terribly sad to her. Her frown deepened. A purpose is something you give to yourself, huh? I don't want to lose what I have, Ruth said with certainty. If there's a purpose I've given to my life, that'd be it. That's swell! Ray grinned. I think I'm pretty much the same. My dear friends entrusted me with something they spent a long time building. And I've made it my mission to keep it going. That's my purpose. Your friends? Ruth blinked. Sorry, are they... Ruth... No.
Oh,
I
sorry.
assume Ray
Yeah.
nodded. Ray nodded.
Ray was part of your head all along.
Although you do remind me of one of them. How's that? He wanted to protect as well. Ray smiled softly, her eyes distant. That's the sort of person he was. A protector. It's all he wanted. It's all he thought about. It drove him a little bit crazy in the end. Do you think you're the same? Ruth scowled. About being crazy? No. Ray chuckled, shaking her head. About being a protector. She thought about it for a good while, tenting her fingers and leaning forward. Golden eyes stared off into space. She'd tried to protect, hadn't she? She'd tried so hard. But she hadn't succeeded. The fact that they were here now, without Skipper or Dragon, proved that all by itself. As a protector, she was a failure. That couldn't be denied. But that didn't mean she was a failure forever, did it? Yeah, she said with confidence. I'm a protector. Great! Ray grinned. If that's the case... Ruth's eyes narrowed. The reporter finished. Could you protect me right now? Well, she was certainly getting paid enough for it. Skeletal set! It was a partial manifestation, just the claws and gauntlet on her left hand, but the boost in speed and strength was enough to allow her to lash out and strike the fist that had been about to hit Ray in the face. Blood sprayed onto the floor, and the sudden attacker flipped backwards, landing a short distance away. In the same smooth movement, Ruth stepped forward, standing protectively in front of her employer. Hands off, she said seriously. She recognized the attacker immediately as they rose back to their full, impressive height. The Scurrant woman from the Tree of Might, the one with the transparent skin. The second branch, Violence. She shook her damaged fist, more blood dripping onto the floor from her shredded knuckles. She had no visible eyes or face, but Ruth could tell she was being glared at. One of Dragon's subordinates? Ruth pondered. What's she doing here? Violence cracked her neck, her face angled past Ruth's shoulder, locked straight onto Ray. Ray Rudicia, she growled. I've come to demand a blood duel from you. You have no right to refuse. Prepare yourself. Ray didn't seem too fazed by the situation, and simply cocked her head playfully. Can I designate a proxy? You have that right. Violence's voice was cold and merciless. A big grin on her face, Ray planted her hands on Ruth's shoulders from behind. Then I'll designate my lovely bodyguard, Ruth Rode. Lovely? Ruth glanced away. Oh, she is the lesbian of all time, question mark? Violence snorted, lowering her body into a combat stance, her good palm extended out in front of her. I won't deny, since we clashed at the temple, Rode has intrigued me. You're strong, aren't you? I'll have you demonstrate that for me now. It was always the same with these people, battle junkies, eager to test their strength against others. Once upon a time, Ruth had felt the same way, but these days, it just kinda got on her nerves. They both darted forward at the same time. Ruth manifested the other arm of the skeletal set, while Violence pulled her good fist back for a punch. As the fist came back in, Ruth raised both her arms in front of her face to block, and right before the punch landed, red sparks of aether crawled up those arms. Noblesse set. Is this her version of a parry?
Yeah.
At the last second, Ruth switched her skeletal arms for Noblesse, and the impact of Violence's attack was sent right back at her. The Skirn went flying backwards, fist crushed by its own force, and Ruth darted in to pursue. She manifested the skeletal arms once more, and Violence swung her other fist right at Ruth's head. Ruth didn't hesitate at the unexpected attack, nor panic as it rushed towards her. There wasn't time for such things, she just acted. Skeletal set! This time she manifested the legs, and used the enhanced speed to duck under the punch. However, she didn't take advantage of the opening and press the attack. There were still too many unknowns. Ruth retreated backwards, claws raised to defend against any pursuit. None came. As she and Violence once again stood a short distance from each other, Ruth unmanifested her armor and caught her breath, running through her observations in her mind. Barehanded fighter. I was able to damage her both times with just skeletal and noblesse, so her durability's not great. However, she definitely regenerated her shredded fist just now. Oh, you know what I bet her power is?
What?
Given her name, I bet she's got a Bloodborne-ass ability where it's like, the more I hurt you, the more I heal.
You cut out. I didn't quite see it, sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
I said, I bet she's got a, given her name, I bet she has a Bloodborne-ass ability where it's like, the more she hits you, the more she heals or something.
Interesting.
She definitely regenerated her shredded fist just now. She didn't have time to apply panacea between attacks. A healing ability, self-targeted. What conditions need to be met for activation? Too early to tell. I'll need to observe carefully. If she can heal, I need to either get around that healing or bring her down with a single attack. Your eyes, Violence murmured approvingly. Those are the eyes of a warrior. You've fought in countless battles, haven't you? Ruth didn't blink. Is there any way we can end this without fighting? As a fellow warrior, you should know there isn't, Violence replied. Our language is the fist. To those like us, the killing blow is the full stop that concludes our declaration. Anything else is worthless noise. I get that, Ruth sighed, but isn't there any way? Violence growled and her fist tightened. She hadn't healed the one that had been hit by Noblesse's reflection, just the one that Skeletal had slashed first. Was the order of injuries a factor? Or could she only heal injuries from specific sources? Near instant healing, so long as the wound was inflicted by a blade? No, that didn't sound right. Do not ask that question again, Violence snapped. You disgrace yourself and me. Again, Ruth sighed, straightening up. The arms of the skeletal set reappeared on her arms, and she raised those ready claws, maybe bracers?
Yeah.
Of the skeletal set? Golden eyes seemed dark and tarnished in the shade. Fine, she said quietly. Come here. I'll crush you. Oh, I imagine she's like all nonchalant, and then the anime zoom in on her eyes as they narrow. I'll crush you. That's her cut in fucking Persona. I've been waiting for this.
Ruth, you used to be cool. Why aren't you fighting properly?
Alright, let me pull up the... Let's see if we have any Aether. How common is it for spectators and other non-combatants to die in the crossfire of Dawn contest fights?
It used to be a lot... Well, initially it wasn't very common at all, first couple. Then it became very common. And then, over time, to the modern age, it's reduced again. To the point where, if it did happen, it would be a big deal.
Ooh. So it's like NASCAR.
Yeah.
Alright, well, thank you guys for watching, as always. And, oh, you know what? Tell us in the Aetheral Space chats, what is your killing engine?
Yeah, tell me about your killing engine.
And if you're not a patron already, make sure to check out the Patreon, which Tanhoney will link in the video below, surely.
Yeah.
Surely, smile.
Surely.
Smile.
Surely. It's in the description.
Surely.
It's probably in the description.
Hey, you've been posting it this whole time, right?
Of course I have.
Anyway, we'll see you guys. Bye!
Bye!